So we're online now? Yeah. Okay, great. And it's so we want them on the screen there. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll spotlight them. Sure, but it's easy enough. So we'll spotlight them. Okay. And then you could drag it over like this. And you could put it in the corner. We can make it bigger too. I just don't like to make it too big because it'll cover some content. So do we want to, oh, we have spotlights. So I'm going to unpin. Can I remove this spotlight?
Yeah.
Okay. Speaker view. Okay. Yeah, we can be around. So whenever she's ready to speak, we could bring her over. Yeah. Do you want to do it now or we should wait?
We could wait like
30 minutes? Oh, 20 minutes. Okay. But it's easy enough just to grab it and position her where it's not going to cover any text. So.
And she can hear it.
Oh yeah. Yep. Everything's gone.
Can you make it a bit smaller right now?
Sure. And why is this the video?
So the video and audio is being processed inside the office.
Oh, okay.
And this is just here to share the slides.
Okay.
That way they have their presenters.
Got it. Cool. But her audio will go through.
Yeah. Actually, can you hear us on that end?
Jikisha, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi Amni, I can hear you.
Awesome.
All right, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this session. Feel free to move forward and fill up this area if you like to. Otherwise, it's fine where you are. All right, I'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name is Avni Kumar, and I'm a researcher at the Institute for Sustainable Futures in Australia. And I'm joined today by my colleagues, Diana and Jeremy from the Institute for Sustainable Futures as well, and Jamie Myers from the Institute for Development Studies. This session will share findings from a landscape study on climate resilient urban sanitation, which also includes a knowledge and learning agenda to progress work in this space. And before we start, I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the first peoples of this land that we are meeting on today. This is a common practice we do in Australia, Sydney, where I work in, and I wanted to do the same here. This is what the session will look like today. We'll start with a little bit of an icebreaker fun activity. Then I'll present a bit about the study, findings, and setting the context of why this is an important topic and what is needed to progress work on this topic. The next session, we'll hear from some of our partners who are currently doing work and efforts on climate resilient urban sanitation. And unfortunately, they couldn't make it in person today, so they'll be joining us virtually. The fourth session, we will break out into small groups to discuss on the knowledge and learning agenda topics. And you'll have a facilitator within your group to facilitate a discussion. And then finally, we'll close off with a few report backs. All right, so before we start, could I request you all to either use the QR code on the screen or go to www.menti.com and enter the code that you see up there. And it'll ask you a couple of questions. A lot of people clustered around North America. Interesting. Countries of work, also slightly similar to the first question. Bit of a mix around the room. All right, and then the last question. Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Nice to see that one up there. Okay, doesn't look like I can scroll down. But yeah, nice to see those answers up there. Hopefully that gave you all a sense of the diversity in the room, and hopefully that spurs some interesting conversation in the breakout discussions we have later on. All right, so why talk about climate resilient urban sanitation? Most of you or some of you may be aware that there is emerging evidence that points to various climate hazards ranging from slow onset events such as sea level rise, droughts, to events of shocks such as cyclones and floods, as well as increasing unpredictability in the weather, as well as different variability that are posing challenges to functioning of sanitation systems and operation of the sanitation services and systems. And moreover, in urban settings of low and middle income countries with high population densities, where there is reliance on on-site sanitation systems, these increasing climate-induced hazards are causing further additional challenges. And also there is a lot of climate-induced urban migration, which is adding to the burden in urban informal settlements. The various failures of such sanitation systems during weather events has been linked to increased health risks and environmental risks, including pathogen exposure as well. So this is a very critical issue in this regard. And in spite of all this evidence, sanitation has largely been missing from the climate policy dialogue so far. So in this context, we undertook a landscape study on current work in climate change and urban sanitation. And this included recent advances in this space, challenges that are on the highest priority of people working in this area, as well as developing a knowledge and learning agenda for the sector to progress action on this topic. And while the primary study focus was on climate adaptation and resilience across the sanitation service chain, climate mitigation was also included, however, to a limited extent. So in the study, we engaged more than 60 organizations from across different countries across the world, working on varied aspects of urban sanitation. And you can see on the slide the different stakeholders that we engaged with. And a key cohort in this study was engagement with urban development actors as well as climate actors, as we saw like that is the need for the sanitation and the wash sector to closely work with these other sectors that are working in urban sanitation. And the study wanted to capture their priorities and perspectives on this issue as well. So here are some snapshots of the online workshops we carried out. This was early during this year. So yeah, we had some interesting participatory activities which engaged multiple actors on different topics. And this cumulatively resulted in the landscape study report. So the study was guided by the following framework, and apologies if the text is a bit small for people at the back, but I'll read out some of the points there. So we use this framework, which highlights 4 key components important for citywide sanitation. So the first one talks about institutions, policies, and planning. So this is about integrating climate in sanitation policies and vice versa, talking about institutional capacity building on dealing with this issue, leadership and political will to progress this agenda. Secondly, the second dimension talks about financing across the sanitation service chain, specifically on preventive and adaptation measures and financing these aspects. The third, which is the most commonly addressed, is infrastructure and service provision. So talking about robust and repairable and adaptable sanitation infrastructure in different climate hazards and different climate contexts. Monitoring these for continual adaptation, as well as integration across the urban water cycle and seeing how this links to various other aspects such as drainage, for instance. And the last, but the most important, I feel, is engaging users and how do we increase their awareness and capacity to cope and adapt to these different climate hazards. So in the study, we found that current efforts to address climate change and urban sanitation were concentrated firstly around sector policy and strategy planning, infrastructure and technology in the space, and aspects of service delivery, with some focus on institutional capacities, consideration to environmental aspects, and also some work on coordinating amongst different government agencies. Lastly, there were very limited efforts that are focusing on monitoring and learning for continual adaptation in the space, financing mechanisms in this space, engaging with users, and strengthening accountability mechanisms. The study revealed a lot of promising efforts around the leading edge of organizations working on this topic. These included, coming to the institutional aspects, some of these included national level integration of climate and sanitation policy and planning, examples of productive cross-sectoral coordination and recognizing the value of diverse partnerships. So what I earlier mentioned, partnering with urban development planners and climate actors, coming together with sanitation actors. We also saw growing momentum driving organizational level commitment to deliver climate resilient urban sanitation programming through their internal strategies and guidance. And in the blue text there, you see some of the organizations that are working on some of these recent advances. We also saw efforts supporting institutional and regulatory reform. Secondly, on the financing aspect, there were some initial efforts that are underway with the WASH community engaging with climate finance actors to a limited extent, but it has started. And these people and these actors are highlighting the specific needs of urban sanitation and supporting government partners to access climate finance. We also saw emerging research on different ways of measuring resilience, measuring climate resilience, activities to identify the additional cost of resilient sanitation infrastructure and how these could be financed in a better way. The third aspect on infrastructure and service provision, some good examples are on use of digital technology in to incorporate climate hazards in infrastructure planning. Organizations are exploring adaptable infrastructure options. They're undertaking risk and vulnerability mappings and also engaging local level governments and local level NGOs to adapt management of service delivery to better deal with climate hazards in a local context. And lastly, with regards to user engagement, organizations are exploring communication strategies at the community level, building awareness about climate risks and the capacity to cope, adapt, and respond to these hazards. And other efforts promoting local ownership included learning from user preferences, user experiences, as well as community adaptation strategies. So with that, I would like to invite our partners. So we'll be hearing from 3 partners who were part of this work and who are currently doing good work in climate resilient urban sanitation. So we have Shaila Shahid from the Bangladesh government. So the in Bangladesh is a very interesting CWIS, citywide inclusive sanitation and fecal sludge management support cell that brings together experts working on sanitation as well as disaster risk reduction. So she'll be talking about some of the examples from there. And then we have Jigisha from CEPT University in India, who'll be sharing their work. And lastly, Christian Walder from ADB talking about what ADB is doing in this space. So we'll start with Shaila from the Bangladesh government.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Shaila Shahid, Chief Operating Officer, Disaster Climate Change Support Unit, representing Department of Public Health Engineering, Bangladesh, and welcome you all to the presentation of Sustainable Sanitation Solutions towards Building Climate Resilience. So you all know about Bangladesh, one of the most climate vulnerable country in the world. And though Bangladesh has made significant progress in reducing open defecation, but the country is still struggling in terms of safer access to sanitation and hygiene. There are key obstacles and challenges in the country in terms of safer sanitation. That is basically the groundwater contamination, which is serious and sometimes even severe than the depletion of water level. And there are natural and anthropogenic contaminants that also polluting the water, freshwater sources, and creating a kind of heavy impacts to the public health. And there are issues of investing in fecal sludge management with the Swiss framework and approaches. You all might be knowing about Swiss approaches. This is citywide inclusive sanitation approaches. Based on these, we have been working under this disaster climate change support units, and that requires a huge kind of investment from national and policy level. So I'm trying to provide you a little bit of key specific areas regarding sanitation related climatic hazards. The major problems that we face: lack of safe water supply during floods, and there are issues of fecal contamination risks. And the major threat for water safety connected to climate change, especially related to the severe and various level of climatic impacts and disaster that actually the country face frequently. And there are insufficient raw water sources for water treatment, and the climate impacts for the sanitation sector also creates severe threats to the human health. And this is equally concerning for densely populated areas with poor sanitation services. And there are issues about wash infrastructure damage due to increased occurrence of cyclones, depletion in groundwater, and salinity while sea level rises in the country. So the key dimension of climate and sanitation risk nexus, actually the more intense or prolonged precipitation, more variable or declining rainfall or runoff, more frequent or more intense storms or cyclones, I have already mentioned, and more variable and increasing temperatures that actually creating higher water temperatures, and which is compounding have a compounding effects of sanitation pollution in freshwater sources. So here you can see in this slide that the climatic impacts on health through sanitation systems. You can see the dimensions of the vulnerability and what needs to be considered in a kind of climate change locations. So to what extent actually have the climate change risks already been taken into account at the policy level, and we need to have a kind of climate proofing and to apply climate adaptation lens into all kinds of wash service delivery that from our department we are engaged with. So we have already started working on addressing the key climate related risks interacting with different factors like urbanizations, population growth, poverty, health, and land use pattern. So all these kind of changes, we try to have a kind of community risk assessments from the perspectives of the sanitation services or the sanitation services they are enjoying. So by trees, actually, we try to identify the increased risk of diseases or illness from exposure that is happening at the community level, and increased risk of disease or illness resulting from a lack of access to adequate sanitation when systems are destroyed or damaged. So you can see the public service approach which we are talking about, the Swiss approaches. So the basic focus is to have a safe, adequate, equitable, and sustainable water sanitation and hygiene for everyone through gender equality and inclusion approach. Focus on intersectionality approaches. So this is at a glance the focus of what we are doing. We are doing the sector coordination. That's basically our lessons learned, and we are continuously trying to have a kind of monitoring mechanisms. We are now in the process of developing the risk communication and community engagement process through a sanitation service delivery mechanisms, and we are also equally working to ensure gender inclusive and equality approaches, whatever program delivery at this moment we are delivering. And here I have tried to provide key national level supporting mechanism in of building climate resilient sanitation. So these are the key documents and policy guidelines, the national adaptation plans, and these actually are working in line with the UNFCCC mechanism, the Health National Adaptation Process, nationally determined contributions, and climate vulnerability assessments. I have also talked about this previously. So through this CVA process, we are trying to have specific vulnerability assessments, and in the CVA chapter, we have included health vulnerability in terms of addressing the risk associated with the climate change and disaster and all this together. So these are the basic lessons learned before I finish. So how we are going to strengthen climate resilience in national level. So our key focus is mainstreaming climate change into sanitation research, policies, and governance, supporting improved cross-sectoral coordination, addressing national health workforce engagement, strengthening climate sanitation and health information systems, the integrated monitoring and information system, the IMS system, and developing a coherent national approach to infrastructure, technology, and service delivery choices, and how we can mobilize national financing mechanism, particularly for the climate resilience services. So considering the COVID-19 response and the scenario that we have been facing unprecedentedly since the last 2 years, so we are trying to have small and simple modifications to withstand the risk of disasters, carrying out community DRR and climate risk assessment, engaging and consulting the community in planning the work services, to culturally and socially acceptable interventions which are effective, long-lasting, and sustainable. I like to show you some of the solution space at this moment the Bangladesh government is involved with. So you can see the rainwater harvesting, sustainable business model, solar Omni processor, that's for the fecal sludge treatment in the emergency context. These are the MART, the multi-unit toilet systems. These are the innovative piloting projects at this moment the government is engaged with. So I'm finishing here. Thank you everybody for being with us.
Hope that was an interesting perspective from a government stakeholder to hear. I'll share Shaila's email address, so feel free to direct any questions that you may have to her. And now we'll move on to CEPT University in India, and they'll be sharing a different perspective on climate resilient sanitation. They're research practitioners working in this space. So, and Jigisha Jaiswal, who's presenting. Sorry, I'm trying to locate my mouse. A bit complicated. Oh, yes. So we have Jigisha Jaiswal, who's also with us online, and she'll be happy to answer any questions after her presentation.
Hello everyone, I am Jigisha Jaiswal and here to present for the Center for Water and Sanitation, CWASH, CEPT University, based in India. CWASH began its work in 2009 with focus on improving water and sanitation services in India. Over the years, with emerging priority for sanitation in the national flagship programs, CWASH has focused on sanitation improvement, especially for the on-site sanitation in small and medium towns. CWASH supports the government of Maharashtra and India for delivery of effective urban sanitation services. CWASH is also exploring the linkages of climate change and WASH. We are focusing on assessing and reducing climate impacts, developing carbon sinks, reducing emissions in WASH sector, resource sustainability, and climate financing. The presentation will showcase innovations in nature-based solutions, climate resilient services, and opportunities to reduce emissions in urban sanitation. Clean India mission has successfully made the country open defecation free. Despite universal toilet access, a large part of wastewater generated is disposed untreated in open water bodies and open land. With 60% of urban population in India dependent on on-site sanitation, fecal sludge and septage management is on the priority list of India to attain SDG 6.2. In this context, a national fecal sludge and septage management policy has been adopted. The second phase of the Clean India Mission flagship program also focuses on safe management and treatment of fecal waste. The highly urbanized state of Maharashtra has continually focused on the entire sanitation service chain. Since 300 plus cities in Maharashtra depend completely on on-site sanitation, it specifically focuses on fecal sludge and septage management to achieve safe sanitation. Government of Maharashtra has directed construction of 311 treatment plants based on a cost-effective and nature-based technology. Nature-based solutions are adopted to tackle climate impacts on sanitation in the cities. Center for Water and Sanitation supported Government of Maharashtra by preparing a plan for design and execution of fecal sludge treatment plants. Currently, more than 200 fecal sludge treatment plants have become operational and another 30 fecal sludge treatment plants are in construction phase. To curtail the complex and lengthy technical and administrative sanction processes, Government of Maharashtra decided to float pre-approved design templates and follow a single window approval system with fund allocation. The key aspects of the nature-based technology are that 1. It makes use of simple systems like gravity flow, drying beds, and planted gravel filters. Second, these help in reducing construction and operational costs and energy requirements. And third, it ensures fast-track implementation even with limited technical, financial, and human resource capacities. Treatment technology adopted is sludge drying bed followed by anaerobic baffle reactor, planted gravel filter, and chlorination unit. The fecal sludge initially gets dried at the sludge drying bed, capitalizing on the hot and temperate climate of the region. Liquid is further conveyed to the baffle reactor and planted gravel filter under gravity. These units work on the principle of plant-based treatment and filtration through locally available natural resources. Optimal treatment efficiency is achieved from this system, and the treated wastewater complies with the National Wastewater Disposal Standards. Great reduction is observed in the biochemical oxygen demand, fecal coliforms, and suspended solids. Reuse of treated end products have encouraged development of new green spaces, and livelihood opportunities are provided to the local women groups for the operations of the treatment facility. CWASH also supports Y and Sinnar urban local governments to develop and implement citywide inclusive sanitation plans. Y and Sinnar municipal councils are the urban laboratory with a population of 40,000 and 72,000 respectively. These city sizes represent 4,000 plus small and medium towns of India. CWASH has been a pioneer in introducing scheduled desludging of septic tanks concept in India and its implementation in cities of Y and Sinnar. Improved performance of septic tanks after desludging has resulted in improved rainwater quality flowing into river. This is now being scaled up across cities in Maharashtra. As per research, due to regular desludging, there is reduction in methane emissions. However, further investigations needs to be done in this area. The fecal sludge treatment plants at Sinnar and Y have innovatively utilized its treated wastewater and sludge for plantations and landscaping, which not only enhances the aesthetics of the treatment plant, but also helps in creating green spaces towards environment conservation. Along with this, as part of enhancing the treatment plant facility in Sinnar, 3,000 square meter of barren land was developed as an urban forest. The plants used in the development were selected keeping in mind the hard rock strata of the site, as well as the climatic conditions of the city. Within months, the plants were found to be flourishing. Based on this experience, an additional 1,000 square meter of urban forest has been implemented. The treated wastewater from the treatment plant is used for regularly watering these plants through drip irrigation system. This has helped to develop carbon sinks and mitigate carbon emissions. The treatment plants in Y and Sinnar have solar panels installed and have been connected to the grid. Now both FSTPs are en route to becoming net energy positive. CWASH looks at municipal financing and is also exploring the possibility of mobilizing climate finance for water and sanitation, including the potential of green municipal bonds for sanitation. CWASH team extensively supports the implementation of urban sanitation activities. Monitoring systems and dashboards have been developed to track the implementation of fecal sludge and septage management plans in various cities. Currently, the nature-based treatment plants constructed across the state has helped more than 200 urban local bodies in successfully treating their fecal sludge and impacting over 12 million lives. Similar model can be adopted in 4,000 plus cities of India and other similar cities around the globe for treating fecal sludge and approaches to reduce emissions and develop carbon sinks. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jigisha. I'm putting you on the screen here so that everyone can see you. Thanks for that wonderful presentation. So yeah, feel free to direct any questions that you may have. Jigisha is online with us. So we'll have maybe a couple of minutes for 1 or 2 questions. Yes. 1 second. Jigisha, can you hear the room?
No, Avni, I can't hear them clearly.
Just a moment, we're using a mic, so should be fixed.
Hi, Jigisha. Thanks so much for your presentation. In the plenary session earlier today, we had a discussion about how sanitation workers are treated. So I was just curious, in the context that you work in, how are the sanitation workers like perceived? Like what kind of job is it like? Are they like decent paying jobs, and what do people think about it? Just want to get the perspective from the workers themselves. Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the question. I think for the sanitation workers, I feel right now, currently in India, we have a lot of facilities which are being made for them. And in India, we have this Clean India mission, which is also supporting these sanitation workers. And instead of sanitation workers, they are called as, it's in Hindi, which is called Safai Mitras. That means they are friendly workers who are working in the sanitation space and who are our friends. So in that ways, they are supported quite well. Also, there are various schemes under the sanitation at national level and as well as at various state levels. There are various schemes for the sanitation workers. Though, of course, there is a need for I think looking at their health and the hygiene and the safety side of the sanitation workers, which needs to be focused more over here. And moreover, right now, also the focus on the personal protective equipment and all those areas have also started to be gain recognition for them, to give them proper safety. So there are various positives for the sanitation workers, but also there are major areas which needs a lot of improvement as well. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Jigisha. Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Christine Moe. I'm from Emory University, and I want to thank you for a very nice presentation. I was interested in the data that you presented on the scheduled desludging. And you were showing how with the scheduled desludging, you had improved removal of certain biochemical markers, total suspended solids. I wondered if you had also looked at the impact of scheduled desludging on pathogen removal, and also looking at pathogen removal during the fecal sludge treatment processes that you described. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. On that note, we have done a whole 3-year study on the impact of scheduled desludging on the water quality, which comes out from the septic tank, as well as, so in India, there's a scenario where a few of the septic tanks, they are not directly connected to the soak pits, but the effluent goes directly into the drains, and then it gets disposed into the river. So based on that, we've done the study and understood the biological organic load, which has reduced. In few of the cases, we have observed that. And also we have done a study on the fecal coliforms, that is the pathogen load. And there's a mix of results, I would say, where in the few cases we have seen reduction in the fecal coliforms, where the scheduled desludging has taken place. While in the few cases we have seen that there are no concrete changes in the level of pathogens, and there are other reasons because reasons for that. As one of the reason which has come upfront is the age of the septic tank. There have been very old septic tanks which had not gotten desludged earlier for like around 10-15 years. So those septic tanks did not show very good improvement in the reduction of pathogens, even after desludging them once. So maybe we are also planning to conduct the study after another cycle gets over for scheduled desludging. Currently in this one city called Y, there's a one whole cycle of 3 years is completed, and another cycle has begun. So hopefully in the coming in this coming cycle, we would see reduction in the pathogens as well. And on that, we've also published a paper which talks about all these aspects and the impact of scheduled desludging on the environment. So maybe I'll share the link with Avni, and you can get the link to the paper as well. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jikisha. There is another question. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks very much, Jim Westco from MIT. This is an excellent presentation. I would think it would have a lot of potential for peri-urbanizing areas of Maharashtra state. Have you looked into the extension from smaller cities into peri-urban landscapes?
Yes, sir. So on that note, the state had taken a two-pronged approach, where we say one side the state had taken the approach of co-treatment. So so near the sewage treatment plants in the radius of like 30 kilometers, which is generally feasible for the cities. So in that peripheral areas, the cities which lie in that 30 kilometer radius, they were asked to treat their fecal waste at the sewage treatment plants, and where it was not feasible, and the cities also had the capacity to build their own individual fecal/treatment plants. In these cities, the independent treatment plants were set up. And also we have been exploring the areas of the urban-rural linkages as well. So not much has been done on it, but we're still exploring how from the rural areas the fecal sludge can be treated in the nearby urban treatment plants which are already present there.
Thanks so much, Jikisha. And
Thanks,
we
Avni.
can move on, but I'll share Jikisha's email address. If you have further questions, feel free to get in touch with her. So moving on, we'll be hearing from the Asian Development Bank on a different perspective of a multilateral organization on how they integrate climate resilience in their investment funding programs.
A very good afternoon, everyone. It is my great pleasure to be with you today and to talk about climate resilience in ADB urban sanitation projects. My name is Christian Walder. I'm a water supply and sanitation specialist, and I'm currently working with the Asian Development Bank's water sector group. In the next couple of minutes, I want to cover those 4 key elements. On the one hand, I would like to quickly talk about our water sector group portfolio in terms of the financial investments that the ADB is doing in the water sector. Then I would like to talk about ADB's approach to design resilient sanitation projects and programs. Also highlighting one project example, an interesting example from the Philippines, from Baguio, where we try to put the approaches into practice and then finalizing with some publications and capacity building initiatives that we are running. I think colleagues in the room are very much aware about the challenges that we are facing in the water supply, sanitation, and hygiene sector. So there is no need for me to go into the details of this slide. Nevertheless, just I want to emphasize that significant investments, both from the public side and the private sector, will be needed to address the challenges that we are facing in the wash sector. And the Asian Development Bank is an important and key player in the Asia-Pacific region. Per year, we are roughly investing between 2.5 and 3 billion US dollar in the water sector. And this slide gives an overview about the current running water portfolio of the Asian Development Bank. On the left-hand side, an overview of different subsectors. You see hydropower, flood management, and you also see that the majority of investments is still with water supply, sanitation, and wastewater. On the chart on the right, you see the geographic distribution of our water investments. Without going into the details, you see that most of our water investments go to South Asia, and South Asian countries are India, Bangladesh, Nepal, Maldives, followed by Southeast Asia, Central West Asia, and East Asia. So there is a huge portfolio, but nevertheless, there is still a lot more that needs to be done in order to achieve SDG 6. This slide just gives you a quick snapshot of the sanitation investments that the Asian Development Bank is doing. Investments in sanitation, wastewater, centralized, decentralized, and on-site sanitation systems have significantly increased over the last couple of years. And currently we have a sanitation portfolio standing at 5.8 billion. And this represents roughly 22% of the entire water portfolio. Again, you can see the largest portion of this goes to South Asia with more than 2 billion of investments as per July 2022. ADB is the region's climate bank, and we are putting huge efforts into climate financing and to promote water resilience in our operations and programs. This slide shows two key initiatives that we are running at the moment. On the one hand, the Water Resilience Hub that just has been launched in August 2022 as part of our Asia Water Forum. And on the left-hand side, you see a key publication that has been launched in April 2022 on the topic of mainstreaming water resilience in Asia and the Pacific. So these are some of the key initiatives that we are running, really with the goal to promote resilience in our projects and programs. On the other hand, when talking about sanitation investments, we are really promoting an integrated and inclusive perspective. Some of you might be familiar with the citywide inclusive sanitation concept, so that everyone in the city has access to and benefits from sustainable sanitation services, and human waste is safely managed along the whole sanitation service chain. So this would be the ideal outcome of a citywide inclusive sanitation investments. And below this outcome, you see the different elements, the 4 elements that are part of this outcome in terms of capable institutions, safe and reliable services, equity and inclusion. So also the last mile connectivity, specifically addressing poor and marginalized households and informal settlements, informal communities. And also the sustainability of services, financial sustainability, but also operation and maintenance of the assets. So in our projects and programs, we try to integrate all the elements that you can see there. And we have obviously different lending modalities available so that we can really promote the different aspects of citywide inclusive sanitation. With this, I would like to move to an interesting example from the Philippines, from Baguio City. We have been working with stakeholders in Baguio City for quite some years now. And the interesting thing here is that we provide support both for the sanitation side, but also for the climate change and water resilience side. And we have closely worked together with them for quite some time. And I would like to start with the sanitation perspective. We're currently preparing a project that will consider investments in the sanitation infrastructure in Baguio. So both for centralized sanitation, decentralized sanitation, and on-site sanitation. You see the rehabilitation of the network and also the creation of household connections. And this is really linked with institutional reforms and capacity building initiatives. You see capacity building programs for the local government units, and we work together with them to develop tariff reforms programs in order to improve cost recovery of sanitation systems. And this is all has the goal to promote citywide inclusive sanitation and to really, for example, to develop a ficus sludge management plan and to set up FSM management governance systems together with the local stakeholders in Baguio. So following an integrated and inclusive perspective when developing these investment projects. At the same time, we are working together with the city authorities, with the local government units on the topic of smart flood warning, information, and mitigation. So now from the water resilience perspective, we provide specific support for community disaster preparedness. We want to raise awareness and ensure ownership to enhance urban resilience. And obviously, resilience of the sanitation systems is an important element of this entire support that is being provided to the city of Baguio. Without going into the details, you see the project approach, and it's really comprehensive. There is a strong stakeholder engagement throughout the entire project, where we bring on board the key stakeholders that are involved, with the goal really, which you see on the right-hand side, to achieve the anticipated project outcomes in terms of capacity building, replicating, upscaling, and climate change adaptation. And really, by following such an integrated approach, we are able to provide this additionality, to provide this additional knowledge as an institution when designing and implementing projects. In the last part of the presentation, I would like to talk about knowledge management and capacity building initiatives that the water sector group in ADB is running. And I would like to mention again the Water Resilience Hub. And I would kindly invite you to join the Water Resilience Hub. You see the address on the top right. This will be our prime capacity building platform. And we are currently uploading a number of different e-learning courses on various topics. So please do join the Water Resilience Hub. We have also a number of publications I would like to highlight. So here are 5 of them related to Baguio City, the example I explained before on the various topics on climate change, but specifically also climate resilience. And I would like to invite you to check out those publications, to download them, and to learn more about the initiatives that we promoted and we implemented in Baguio City. And last but not least, I was mentioning citywide inclusive sanitation. This is really the approach in terms of designing and implementing sanitation projects we are currently promoting in the Asian Development Bank. We have developed a number of guidance notes, and here you see 3 citywide inclusive sanitation guidance notes on different topics. So together with the publications, you saw the water resilience guidance notes, the publications on Baguio City, you here see the guidance notes on citywide inclusive sanitation. I think there is quite a comprehensive set of knowledge products and tools available that might be useful for your respective projects and programs. With this, I would like to close. Thank you very much for your attention. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, and you can see my email address at this slide at the bottom. Thanks again.
Sorry about that. Getting good at this. All right, feel free to take a photo of that slide if you wish to contact any of the speakers. They'll be happy to answer your questions about their presentations or chat further about their work. So moving on to the next part of this session. So based on the priorities of the different groups of participants that we engaged in this study, we propose a knowledge and learning agenda with a view to how this agenda might serve different purposes and be actioned upon. We presented 6 approaches to advance this agenda and support rapid shift in practice, which is really the need of the hour, considering climate change hazards are already impacting systems and service delivery in the sanitation sector. And these approaches also help to better account for climate change impacts in service delivery. So many of the topics raised by participants are appropriate for knowledge exchange, and therefore the first approach is on sharing experiences across countries and regions. So for example, examples on cross-sectoral coordination, successful and unsuccessful, adaptation approaches, etc. And these activities don't necessarily require detailed research investigations, but rather facilitated dialogues between countries and different countries and regions with different experiences and ideas. And such knowledge exchange is likely to be beneficial across different country contexts to accelerate cross-fertilization of different ideas and avoiding reinventing the wheel in this space. The second approach talks about local level data collection by implementers and government, data on impacts or damage to the sanitation service chain in different climate events, including impacts on people's lives as well as vulnerable groups and their lives. Such information is very critical to inform the decisions and priorities of local level authorities and people who work with them. The third approach talks about collecting evidence to convince policymakers to invest in climate resilience. Often financing for this issue comes up as a major challenge, which was also the case in our study. So this approach is beneficial, and examples to collect evidence can include critical information such as numbers of people with low sanitation coverage level, people who frequently experience climate hazards, and the scale and significance of health impacts from these climate hazards. And closely aligned to this point is evidence to inform policy development. So topics on this include providing clarity on the additional costs for climate resilient sanitation in different climate contexts, analysis of emissions from sanitation systems, along with tools for national level monitoring of resilience of urban sanitation. Since climate change is occurring rapidly, hence the fifth approach is about combining implementation with research, as this can capture learning and evidence from climate resilient programs to facilitate rapid learning in this space and course correction along the way as well. So for example, in situ implementation and evaluation of infrastructure in different climatic conditions, initiatives to integrate water supply, sanitation and drainage, etc. And lastly, academic research. There are complex questions that need rigorous academic research, and these need to be addressed. So with that background, we will move on to a breakout discussion activity. So we will break out into 4 groups, and I would like you to think about those 6 approaches that I presented, and based on your work and your organizational context, align yourself to which one fits best. So for example, if you're working in academic research or you're working on more practice-oriented research, then, accordingly, you can join group 4 or 3 respectively. And each group will have a facilitator, and we'll be talking about some discussion questions. You'll also be given a handout, which includes a long list of proposed topics that can be addressed to further progress work on this topic. So perhaps we will again divide the room into 4 groups. So perhaps some of you can move forward and combine in this group. And yeah, give it a thought and feel free to move around. Maybe the group here can be group 1, talking about sharing experiences across countries. There's already work being done. You see that there are case studies of best practices that can be shared. We join group 1 here. Group 2 will be at the back of the room there. This group 2 is talking about evidence to inform policy development or evidence to convince policy makers to invest in climate resilience. We have group 3 at that corner. So implementers and researchers working together, what are the topics that they can work on? So that's group 3, and then one side of the group will be group 4. That's clear now.
And we have about minutes or so for the session. And then we will go back. Can I please request people to like try to evenly divide if you can? Because you don't want too many people in one group.
Yeah, exactly.
In a lot of ways, so. And I worked with research consultant for research, So my first maybe I can I'm happy to talk about infrastructure. Some of our experience. Yeah, we need power. We are. Yeah. Not.
Question number 2 about their
Yeah, no, this is definitely one of the things we have been working with having the mainstreaming with topics. We know that there. But then if you say about like the regional. How much you see that everywhere, in their life. Yeah. But then I think we actually are climate change now. It's also like mitigation. But
Hi, everyone. Could we just wrap up discussions in about 30 seconds, if that's all right? Thank you. All right. Sorry to interrupt anybody who's talking. We need to finish on time. So can I please have your attention here again? Yep. Can we have our attention here? Hope you had some useful discussions, and sorry to interrupt if somebody was talking in middle of a thought. We'll have, can we have one volunteer from each group to briefly summarize some of the points you discussed? Try to be brief if possible. We can start with group 1. And thank you so much, Paul, for volunteering to do this.
So our
Do you want, yeah, thank you.
oh. Hello, there I am. Hi, so our group talked about local data collection and how to kind of harmonize sanitation and climate change from the local and national level. One of the points that was brought up is the importance of recognizing how sanitation services can also help to mitigate climate change. Container-based sanitation was brought up as an example of this. Another really major theme was how to harmonize climate change and sanitation across a number of different ministries, from sanitation agencies to environmental agencies, and those working on socioeconomic issues, and actually trying to find a home within government to actually combine sanitation and climate change issues and make sure policies aren't actually at odds between climate adaptation and providing sanitation services. We talked about the importance of local data collection, having people that have the capacity to collect environmental data, whether that's fecal samples or understanding where people are accessing water and sanitation services and what the quality of that is, and also mapping where people are exposed to floods, because that's often an indicator of how people are getting exposed to E. coli and other pathogens in water. And also making sure that you put pressure on government to actually address climate change and sanitation,
And not only that, but make sure that there's continuity and plans to address climate change between different politicians and yeah, political regimes that arise. I think that covers it. Anywhere else, anything?
Thanks. So for group 2, we talked about generating evidence for policymaking, and we were a small group, but we really got engrossed in the discussion, and we didn't get to the third question because time really disappeared. But I will just report briefly on what we did discuss. So in our group, there was actually a lot of diversity of experiences and types of roles that we play. So we had someone from UNICEF, we had someone from public health in the government of the Netherlands, we had an implementer from a project in Western Kenya, and an academic from Indonesia. So a really, really diverse group. And so we talked about the things that we're already doing in terms of evidence to convince policymakers to invest in climate resilience. There were a lot of different types of actions, particularly at different levels. So at the global, national, local, or subnational level. And in terms of evidence to inform policy development, there was also a lot of actions from the different participants. And we also identified what were some gaps, and particularly there was talk about there being new energy around climate in all policy, but there was desire for coordination around different ministries, and that is something that's going to take time. And we also talked about different approaches to risks in the sanitation supply chain. We talked about sanitation safety planning, which includes climate risk. And I'm sure I missed a lot of things as well, but I hope that gives a glimpse of our discussion.
So I was in group 3, and we were the combined implementation and research group. So we had people from NGOs, government, university, and each of us are in a sort of a position where we can think of ways that climate resilience could be built in with what we're doing, but sort of just getting there. We have ideas, but not necessarily getting into it really deeply right now in a variety of ways. So we talked a bit about what kind of resourcing or support would we need to sort of make that leap to delve more into the climate resilience space. And I guess one theme that came out strongly was around cross-sectoral collaborations and partnerships, which are beneficial for a number of reasons. One is that other sectors and other organizations are obviously working on the same climate adaptation and resilience challenges, and that there's a lot that we can work from them. There's some natural partners within our own organizations even that can lend knowledge and tools that they've developed. And partnerships are also important for implementation and practice. So we want to make partners with local institutions. So if we have good research, we want to be able to partner with people on the ground that can use that research and put it into practice. Setting up communities of practice is one way that we can sort of develop partnerships across different arenas. Aside from that, some other resourcing that would be useful is, I think someone mentioned kind of government buy-in, but encouraging donors and governments to invest in research development for climate resilient sanitation products and services, the right policies that will enable climate resilient sanitation. And one other one I wanted to mention was, and I guess in all of our work, we'd like to be at least climate sensitive. We don't need to become climate resilience organizations and everything that we do. We don't need to be necessarily leading the way, but at least every work that we should do shouldn't be completely ignorant of climate change, and would at least be addressing it in some way. Thanks.
Last group.
Thank you. So we heard about a range of different research, which is ongoing by different stakeholders from the academic community, which is who we represent. So we had a couple of examples of how mapping is used, and the mapping of sanitation facilities and other infrastructure to help inform other planning processes. And we had an example of flooding also being overlaid. We had examples of research into urban resilience and the prevention of fecal contamination. We also had examples of research on private-public partnerships and adding climate risks into contracts. Other examples of climate change and uncertainty around sewage systems, some examples around building resilient infrastructure and co-designing nature-based flood-resistant sanitation systems, and ways to measure household resilience as part of that. We also spoke about user engagement and particularly the impact climate change is having on women in urban areas, and how we have a piece of research saying that food security is often a higher priority in these during climate stresses rather than sanitation. And also we need to ensure that lessons learned, we need to be better at understanding what people really want. Regarding questions we're interested in, there was a need to understand more about how families think about cost of climate resilient infrastructure. And also, no, I can't remember what that was about, sorry. But just some overarching, we went through all the questions and then we had some overarching reflections. So whatever questions we ask, we need to be ensuring we're engaging with the research users. Someone questioned if this urban-rural divide is helpful in many contexts and if we need to be considering it more as a continuum. We need to better understand the local level and what people know and understand about some of these questions at the very community level. And we also had a question for you, which was how's the information and the discussion we've had going to be used?
Sure. Happy to answer that after the session. I'm conscious we're a bit over time. I just have a minute to share something else, but feel free to leave if you have other meetings at 3. Just wanted to leave you with the report. This is the link to the report and the QR code that you can access and read the report in detail. And also there is a call to action, which has been developed through collaboration between UNICEF and other organizations. And this is being launched at COP27 next month. There's a sanitation session at the Water Pavilion at COP27 this time. So that's really encouraging for sanitation. That's all from my side. I just wanted to acknowledge Juliet Willits and Freya Mills, who had a very active role in this work as well. And these are all the participating organizations in this work. Thank you so much for coming today, and feel free to come up to me and have a chat about anything you're still wondering about.